Okay, this is where we're going to discuss your research proposal, which is an overview of Part A of the actual assessment. You don't have to start the assessment yet, but this is just to let you know what it'll be about. So you'll have a research topic and you'll negotiate a suitable topic with me, and your research will relate to a community or workplace issue, and then you'll develop a research plan. So your instructor must approve your plan, and any changes to the plan after approval must be negotiated. So if you decide that something's not going right and you need to change it, you'll have to let me know. Your plan should show the title of the research project, the target audience and their interest, the research purpose, the objectives required to achieve the purpose, the research methods and resources that will be used to collect, analyse and evaluate the information, how you will deal with problems in obtaining the information, including legal and organisational requirements, the method that will be used to record and securely, safely store the information collected, the project timeframe, and what you will produce and present to the target audience, for example, the formal report and the oral presentation. Okay, so it's important to note that when you're doing the research, both primary and secondary information sources must be used. Primary resource examples include autobiographies and memoirs, diaries, personal letters and correspondence, interviews, surveys and fieldwork, which includes questionnaires, internet communications on email, blogs and news groups. Secondary resource examples include bibliographies, biographical works, reference books including dictionaries, encyclopedias and atlases, and articles from magazines, journals and newspapers that have been written after something happened, so after the event. And more information can be found at this link here down on the bottom of the page. So with the primary and secondary data, you need to develop a survey or an interview, some sort of questionnaire to collect your primary data. And with your secondary data, you must also use at least 2 other information sources such as the internet, articles, journals, newspapers, library books, etc. Now, note 2, you must survey or interview at least 5 individuals from a target group identified in your research plan. You can interview more if you like. The survey or interview and the completed copies must be submitted in an appendix to your report, so like an attachment to the report. Ensure privacy of information by blocking out any personal information gathered during your surveys. Now, survey or interview details. The survey or interview must contain the purpose of the survey clearly communicated to the target audience. So some sort of a heading if you're doing it online, or on the paper if you're going to do it by questionnaire. The target audience addressed or identified. So who are these people and why are they good people to interview or survey for your research project? The incentive for the audience to complete and return the survey. Are you going to give a prize? Are you going to keep them informed throughout the process? A return date, person and address if you're giving a survey. So in other words, when you send out your survey, if you use email, you need to ask them, please return by Friday or please return by next Tuesday and a date. Clear instructions on how to complete the survey. So don't make any of the questions ambiguous or difficult to understand. Try to make it as simple as possible, and if you think there could be confusion, put some little notes at the bottom to explain how to answer the questions. Now, following on from last week, the question types required, you need at least 10 closed questions, 5 embedded questions, 5 scalar, and 2 open-ended questions. Now, if you're going to do your surveys online, you're only allowed to have 10 questions with an unpaid account. So you'll need to do 2 surveys, and you can just do 8 closed questions instead of 10. You could also do a combination of an online survey with 10 questions and a paper-based survey with your 5 embedded, 5 scalar and 2 open-ended questions. So combine the 2 types of surveys. Now down the track you're going to complete a research plan, and it will come in a table like this. It'll have the title of the research project, the purpose of the research, the target audience and the due date. So you'll complete it with your objectives, so what you need to do to achieve your goal, and you can use certain words to start off your objectives. So establish, you might say establish the need for better eating habits in children. Then you might continue to say identify if children eat vegetables every day. And you might use the term investigate to say the availability of fresh food in school canteens. Compare 2 canteens together from one school to another, and so on. Then you'll move on to how you're going to get this information. So how you're going to reach your objectives. Perhaps you might research statistics online about eating habits in children. You might survey some school children in your street to see what sort of things they eat for snacks and take to school for lunch. Then you've got to analyse and tabulate your data and decide what's useful and what's not useful, and compile your recommendations and a submission. Then you might have issues, anticipated problems regarding where and who has the information you need. So there could be restrictions on information you get about eating habits in children. You might need permission from their parents to survey them. Would there be any risk management issues about going into school canteens and comparing them? The costs, transport, those sorts of issues, the time involved, will you have to travel, and obviously the confidentiality issues, that you would make sure these surveys were totally anonymous. Then the last column talks about how you'll be assessed. The research proposal is worth 10%. The final formal report, which we'll talk about in another presentation, will be worth 70%, and your class presentation with visual aids is 20%. And all 3 must be passed in order to achieve competency. So you can't get 2% for your research proposal and pass. So this is an example of a completed proposed research plan. The title of the research project is Pet Kennel Service Feasibility Study. The purpose of the research is to investigate the feasibility of establishing a pet boarding service in the Padstow area, and the target audience is the partners Southern Suburbs Boarding Kennels. Now, by target audience, this means that the partners of Southern Suburbs Boarding Kennels are doing this research survey or study to decide if they want to extend their services into the Padstow area. So they perhaps already have a few kennels around the place and they want to see if it's worth expanding their operations. Now obviously this is a large research plan. They're a large corporation, so their objectives are going to be much greater than perhaps yours will be in your small research plan. But their objectives are to identify demand for a canine management service in a 5-kilometre radius of Padstow. Then they want to identify the number of direct competitors in the area to see how much competition they'll have. Then they want to investigate the competition's advertising and pricing structures. Identify legal restrictions on trading. So, at certain places you can't have 25 dogs. You've got to make sure that the council will allow you to run it in the area you're thinking of, and establish the cost of leasing a shopfront, business license, insurances, etc., etc. Now again, their methods are going to be on a large scale, because this is a large research plan. Their methods are write and conduct a letterbox survey targeting 1,000 households in the area. Then to identify the number of direct competitors, they'll do an internet search, the Yellow Pages, business register, that sort of thing. To investigate the advertising and pricing, they'll source the competitors' services and pricing details from advertising, and perhaps by phoning for quotes, even direct visiting the competitors. And to identify the legal restrictions, they'd obtain details from Bankstown Council, health departments specific to pet care, etc. And establishing the costs of leasing a shop front, they'd obtain advice from a small business management consultant on startup costs and that sort of thing. Okay, any issues that they might come across with their 1,000 household survey? The number of surveys might turn out to be very low. People may not answer them. So they'd need to follow up with door-to-door surveying, which will take more time and money. Identifying the number of direct competitors in the area, there should be no issues with that because that's public knowledge. The same with the identifying legal restrictions on training down the bottom there. All that information would be public knowledge from the council. Investigating the competition's advertising pricing. Pricing might be difficult to obtain. Some people don't like giving prices over the phone. They prefer you to come in and see them. You may need to employ a mystery shopper and use their services as a customer. And establishing the cost of leasing a shopfront, you might find that a consultant could be too expensive. And if so, then you'd need to perhaps just go directly to real estate agents and insurance companies and do the research yourself, which again is very time consuming. So just in summary, you'll collect, organise and analyse data, sort and select relevant data, keep an up-to-date record of collected data, and analyse the surveyed data, producing tables and or graphs. You'll plan and present a report. You'll write a draft and refine the draft and assemble the format into a final report. And then you're going to plan and deliver a 15-minute oral and visual presentation to show the summary of the purpose, the method, the findings, conclusion, and the recommendations. So your job over the next few weeks is to start thinking about what type of research you'd like to complete. Remember, it has to be a workplace or a community issue. Examples of community issues are increased traffic fatalities in your area, environmental problems, air or water pollution, high crime rates, drugs in society, that sort of thing. Examples of workplace issues could be bullying, stress, work health and safety. So ideas, is there a safety issue in your part-time job, or perhaps you have a neighbour who can't get access to childcare? Are you concerned about the number of disposable nappies being used in the 21st century? Are you worried about education, unemployment, or immigration? Or maybe something bothers you about the plans for the new airport at Badgerys Creek. Now, while there's no need to rush into finding a research topic, it's a good idea to start thinking about it. You'll need to have an idea by about week 5. Anyone who has something in mind now, they can see me at the end of the lesson. No two students can use the same topic. Now I've just added a list of websites that might help you. There's some very good YouTube videos you can watch here, plus just some text that you might want to read about developing your research project. When you start thinking about what sort of research you want to do, try to think in terms of something that might be easily accessible to you. Do you have a friend who works in a childcare centre? Does your mother work for a doctor and she's being bullied at work? Is your brother a doctor himself and he's having stress issues at work? These sorts of things you can use to gain the access easily. It doesn't have to be something huge where you can have trouble finding the information.